So for tough ones like this where you have variables in the denominator, like our m here, the goal is always the same. It's the same process. You're trying to get common denominators so you can combine some stuff. And then you also want to keep some good habits about representing things in mathematics in mind. 4m plus 2, you can factor out a 2 from that. So always factor when you can. Here's what we'll have. Okay, as I finish up writing here, you'll see that first fraction after I factored out the 2 is 2m plus 1. And now we have something in common here. Made our lives a little simpler. So we factored out a 2. We saw we have a 2m plus 1, 2m plus 1. We're missing a 2m plus 1. So let's multiply this by 2m plus 1 over 2m plus 1. Again, we have to multiply it to the top and to the bottom because that makes it multiplying by 1. We're not actually changing the fraction, just how it looks. There we go. So I multiplied by 2m plus 1 over 2m plus 1 here. I multiplied this one by 2 because you can see each fraction has a 2 and a 2m plus 1 now. So now we have common denominators. So we can do a little simplification. We can distribute that 17 here. We can multiply this 7 times the 2 here, and let's see what we have. So there, I just did those two simplifications. Now that we have common denominators, we can subtract. So we got, oops, I'm missing an m here, right? This is 34m. So now we can subtract 34m plus 17, subtracted by 14, this is 34m plus 3. And there it is, we have 34m plus 3 right there, because I did 17 subtract 14. So now that we have a fraction equals a fraction, there's a simplified step where you can just cross multiply here. You can multiply across these diagonals, and then multiply, and then set that equal to what happens when you multiply these diagonals together. So in blue, I have 6 parentheses 2m plus 1. And we're going to set that equal to what happens in green. And that's kind of long-winded, so let's leave it all as it is, not do any simplification yet. We're doing 2 parentheses 2m plus 1 down here in the bottom left corner. We're going to multiply this stuff up here. And again, it's in a numerator, so we got to protect it with the parentheses. And let's take a look at what we have. Now that we've done that multiplication, look on both sides, we have a 2m plus 1 and a 2m plus 1. So make your life easier. Since this is all one term, this is one number if we just knew what m was. And this is one number, because everything's being multiplied together. So, oops, I'm doing this in red. Divide everything by 2m plus 1. Do it once to both sides, that way you still have a balanced step. When you do that, this cancels out, and this cancels out, so you have something a lot simpler to work with. 6 equals 2, parentheses, 34m plus 3. And again, you can just get rid of that 2 because that's being multiplied to this 34m plus 3. So the opposite of 2 times this stuff is dividing everything by 2. And I think this is getting simpler and simpler. If you've gotten to, I mean, I don't mean to say this is simple, but if you've gotten to this part in the course, this equation shouldn't give you any trouble. So, you subtract 3 from both sides, you're going to get m equals 0. But with these ones where the variable started in the fraction, you always want to go back and check and see if that answer makes sense. Whereas our original problem was this. So let's picture, if m is 0, 4 times 0 is 0, 0 plus 2 is 2, so we get 3 halves there. And then you got 2 times 0 is 0, 0 plus 1 is 1, so you have 14 over 2, subtract 70, yeah, that checks out, that works out. But sometimes you have problems where you get to divide by 0, like if one fraction had an m right here. We'd have to say no solution because you can't divide by 0 in this part of the fraction. So just always make sure when the variable starts off in the denominator, check to make sure you don't have a divide by 0 error by mentally plugging it in and seeing what happens.